There seems to be an accusation by the Americans that we somehow endangered their forces on the ground by insisting on one of the gates at the airport remaining open. What is the truth of that?
Look, we coordinate very closely with the US, in particular around the ISIS-K threat that we anticipated, although tragically we're not able to prevent. But it's certainly right to say that we got our civilian staff out of the processing centre by Abbey Gate.
But you push back on any idea.
But there's it's just not true to suggest that other than securing our civilian staff inside the airport, that we were pushing to leave the gate open. In fact, and let me just be clear about this, we were issuing changes of travel advice before the bomb attack took place, and saying to people in the crowd, what I was particularly concerned, that certainly UK nationals and anyone else should leave because of the risk. First of all, by the way, that we have a division of labour between ministers, particularly ministers of state, is absolutely bread and butter to what any foreign secretary does. I've spoke to Foreign Minister Qureshi. It's true to say Lord Ahmed, Minister of State, who had been in the Foreign Office since as a minister since before I, had a very good working relationship with the Afghan Foreign Minister. He, if you like, had charge of that. But in terms of what I was doing, whether it was with the US well before the new administration, whether it was with NATO, whether it was with the Quad, which is the E3 that get together with the US, I was constantly and persistently involved in making sure we tested what the plans were and trying to make sure that we had as clear-cut approach and as workable approach to withdrawal as possible. And as you know, we were obviously pushing quite hard for a conditions-based approach rather than a timelines-based approach. Anyone that is toddling off to the Sunday Times or any other newspaper at a time of crisis, including the evacuation, we've seen it 2 weeks running, giving buck-passing briefings, either at me or the FCDO, is frankly not credible, and it's deeply irresponsible. I've spoken, for example, to Foreign Minister Qureshi regularly, obviously more intensively given the evacuation, but we've absolutely been on this, and you can see that we've been on this, FCDO and the team across government. Why? Because we've got 17,000 people out since April. So I totally reject that. And again, I come back to this thing. Those giving anonymous briefings to newspapers during the evacuation, I'm afraid, have very little credibility, and it's pretty obvious, transparent buck-passing. Well, look, of course, we are lament the fact that anyone would be left behind. I would just say that since April, when we've been planning and instituting this, over 17,000 British nationals, Afghan workers, vulnerable special cases are out. I know that the number of UK nationals, the particular responsibility of the Foreign Office, is now down at a very low level.
Could you be specific?
Well, low hundreds, given that we've taken in total 5,000 out, and most of those are difficult cases where it's not clear around eligibility because they're undocumented. We hadn't seen in that 20 years Afghanistan used as a base for terrorist attacks abroad. We had with our aid money and our wider development policy, got 10 million more children into education. I think by the time we've left, 4 in 10 of those were girls. If you look at the maternal mortality rate, so mums dying in pregnancy or in childbirth, that was down by close to 50%. So there were real tangible gains for all that sacrifice. Of course, now the focus is to recognise the new reality, learn the lessons, of course, from it, but also focus on what we can do going forward.